to cut you on. Okay, can everybody hear out there? Internet land? Okay. Let's... Ya hachunk iyan hadehas wukuch yadak kadak. Achoyach tuasagu. Chayego genki a wushuch agachtutla ati. Yewech tuasagu. Hain kainigi. Adu sawe wa'a. Gudach sawe wa'a. Datyach sawe Tlingit yukatangish to iltu wu yidatsu. Yewe ya shukwa ayi aka. Khosaku we dachadushu khanach aya yayati a. Gwall achtuasaku kedena ya yilsayi. Yidat kwa achtuasaku ya Tlingit gaw data ya yukagatusha at. Ka we perfective yedu asago at. Ka wasa at wune. Ka gwalchayig genki a. We shkashnik a data ya. Kagachtuslatin. Yewe achtuasaku to cut you on. Ilchish had ye adi. Ilchish tlain. So we got some guests who came down from Ginjichuan Ani, which is actually Tlingit Ani, and Southern Tashoni, Hasta Ani. So I thought we'd start with just a quick go around, say who you are. Tlingit Chenach, and so in Tlingit, give us like a Tlingit introduction. Doesn't have to be a big, huge thing. And then just say, kind of, status report. Where are you at with your language studies? How's it going? I know 7 days could be a long time. I hope you rested. And then we'll start by talking about time. We want to talk about perfective verbs today. And then we might conjugate a few things. We finished the little readings in Tlingit, which was really fun. And then I've got a little story for us to look at. And I'll post several resources on the next few days. Just a whole bunch of stories. They're not complete. It's hard to get things published that are written entirely in Tlingit, but I think they're pretty close. And so another thing we can just sort of have a discussion about is how do we keep making more things? What are the things that are needed that can help you just walk around with the language? So, who wants to go first? Who you are, where you at with your language studies, how scared you might be. We got folks online. Jaasadu tuasagu shukwa ayi.
And I'm in my, I guess, fourth semester.
Yeah.
But I feel like I know this much.
Yikes again, okay.
And sometimes I have memorized a bunch of stuff and then I go back and I've already forgotten it. I get discouraged. But I love it, love the language. So I'm just gonna keep trying, keep listening, absorbing. And Ganesh Chish, Lance's an amazing instructor.
Yeah, okay, Ganesh Chish.
Zisk Yechapdosa, Pekachenach Gabriel Krishner. I'm a student. I forgot how to say I'm a student. I'm also in my fourth semester, and I also feel like I know about this much. Sometimes I'll be like, I heard house. There you go. Heard nose. There you go. So it's a really really excited though, even if verbs are terrifying.
Oh, verbs. Oh my god. They start and my brain goes, woo!
It's just all over sometimes.
Okay. Hiccough.
It's klar, you could do some Hiccough in a coming. I actually Hiccough in a sisla. I actually to Yechnoch city Hoselish on city. Quanlink Hiccough
Hiccough.
I thought you were trying to get a fly or
Our online army.
Tlingit Enach Edith himself. Hiccough Enach Millie Hall, you had himself. Kokaton Nachat City. Disling Kwan Dach Adachat. Haynes Junction. Dakulkadak Hiccough. Tlingit Enach Stuchat to Hiccough. We recordings and
Cheese. Hiccough.
Chitwu, you have to yourself. Akla, Lagoon, you do yourself. Nidi Shawat, Konlenk, Yechat well, Whitehorse. Eugenie, retired.
It's the hate, okay. Okay. Ich die Idee ku eat koha, ja asa du was kushukwai. Da kuni nach euch wasatin. Who wants to go first online? Chaguk day.
Nishka chenach gui gusam skach yechat duasak. Ka chenach tna McNeil yechat duasak. Chu Tlingit yuchatangi shtuchashtu kachwaak.
Okay, it's cheese. You did quoi? Let's get a Johan. Someone's got to go next.
She you cut do a sock. Nanya I cut kitch chronic ya cut yati. Los chish.
You kecha, good cheese. Dachnacha away, Johan.
Tlingit Kinach Shanak 8 Yuchat Duasak Kagwantan Ayachat Shitka Kwan Ayachat Tlingit Kinach Stuch Ashtu Kuk Ka textbook ka une 70 elders tapes
Gynnell cheese. Chukan eitro.
Ugsayi Johnson late Kag Enach Chukani di Ayachet Hiksadi Yadi Khatsati.
Yak echawe Johan gynnell cheese. Chateya Chonei achsayi. Gedach ako akatzati du ani kaudenug. Chukachadi oe uhan. Ya ach ish has oe yupik. Du yatasu wasako ach ish. We kagwantan ach oe kagwantan yadichatsati. Daklawi di dachran. Ya ach tla du ish oe ach shuk aku atlatu. Qonne ayashte khultun. Tlingit Yirchitangi. Keka Kad Nask Tag Shuwahichen. Yewe Tuck away. Kuthat Ausene awa Ya Tlingit. Ye awe Kajakti ye a kawe yek at ye Tlingit ane kakutzati. Has Ausenech. Achwe Yehwaji Hakach Senechi at away ha Yukatangi. Gunnel chish awake a Dane kia aku. Tachwasach tu kleke yikach the kat yuhan. Gunnel chish Ya ach tla tu tla. Waterfall Alaska Koekutzati. Dekina Chasati. Ka shukach aditsu hayatas wasaya shukach adi shqakwek echat qutzati Tlingit ane ka qone ayatlingit yuqatangi ayashte khultun ka achtu asagu takwe ka ikhaltu naskina khwe akhyetki Tlingit has ausaku chachtu asagu ka has auslyechi Well, Tlingit yisaku, Tlingit yitlayechi, Tlingit yishagug. Yewe hatu wasagu Tlingit away, watushagugu. Ajwe wushkanach watuda atnuj. Gunchish. Thanks everybody. I'm really proud of what you guys can do. It makes me very happy to hear us speaking in Tlingit. It's something, I started with my grandpa 23 years ago. He was in kind of bad health, and I was moved home to help him. I remember because I had just turned 20, right? And we're sitting around the table. I don't know what made me think of it. I was like, Grandpa, you know Tlingit? He says, yeah. I said, teach me Tlingit. He pointed at the salt. He said, age. And I couldn't say that, and he just laughed, because he loved to laugh at people. He lived in this little one-story house, and yet my cousins had friends, and his cousin came over. He was kind of the way so he was always a little buzzed. He came over looking for my cousin. He's like, where's so-and-so? I don't want to use names in these stories. My grandpa says, he's upstairs. He starts walking, and he'd been to the house like 1,000,000 times. So he stops and he goes, where's the stairs? Right? So like, there were no stairs in that house, and there never were. So. But then I kept going, and I just realized I wanted to learn it, I wanted to speak it, and I wanted to teach it. So I'm always happy when we get together around our language. Anybody got any questions or thoughts before we kind of move into this thing with time? Tlingit shtichaltu means I'm studying Tlingit. Tlingit ya'at nasquaini chatzati, I'm a student of Tlingit. That's how you'd say either of those things. Okay. There's a couple of times I want to come back and keep drilling some of these time things. I just feel like, oh yes, there's a word for hiccup. It's well, uwadut would be to have hiccups. So I would imagine dut is the word for hiccup. That's actually a really good question. And I want to just sort of walk you guys through a couple of resources that I use a lot. And so I'm trying to make this new dictionary. It's probably not going to get any real significant progress for some time. Oops. And that program just crashed. So hold on a second. Reopen. So there's a number of different resources I want us to look at. One of them is called the Tlingit Stem List by Jeff Lear. He's got two Tlingit names, Weha and Yesh Kunuk. I should know that. Anyways, he's done amazing stuff. So this is June of 1978. So this is a list of the known Tlingit verb roots. And then there's a whole bunch of handwritten notes and stuff in here. But when we hear a verb, uwadut, for a hiccup, we could look up doot. That's really what we're going to sort of go for. And so doot is to get the hiccups. So I don't know if there's a word for the actual hiccup itself. It might be wadut or something like that. But then if we want to see the actual verb form of that.
Can I ask you quickly, the line in front of the doot, is that, do you have to say something like my hiccups, or?
That does mean that there should be something before it. Usually, because, usually there's like, so the way that this is working is, these aren't all verb roots. So like do is an interjection, and it means do is sort of like someone's kind of being silly or something, or you did something silly. Do is also probably in there, dich. And so not all of these are verb roots. There's a lot of nouns that are in here. But when there's a hyphen, that's usually telling you it's actually a verb root in this particular thing. And that's saying that it's a zero. There's going to be there's going to be a zero classifier before it. But in parentheses, what he has in this thing is not the classifier. The classifier is either written, and if it's a zero, then sometimes there's nothing there. So that tells you it's a zero group classifier. But what he's got the zero in there is the conjugation. We call it conjugation class or conjugation prefix. So we're going to start going, we're going to go at these verbs like when they would put a halibut hook in the water, they would say, you're going to attack them. So we're going to attack these verbs and we're going to get beat up, but we're not afraid of getting beat up. So the other place we can go is Lear has this wonderful 866-page document that's just Tlingit verbs. This is the largest collection of Tlingit verbs anywhere. It's not always the easiest thing to kind of navigate. Most of them are in the perfective form, which we'll talk about today. But we'll go down here. And so basically there's a table of contents here. I think James Crippen is the one who scanned all this stuff and built the table of contents for us. And then Jeff Lear is the one who did the work. And then another kind of, I guess, a nice thing about this is, whoops, try to zoom in, see if it does it without crashing. So, whoops. So here's the uwadut is hiccuped, has the hiccups. Yadut tends to get the hiccups. But one thing to just be, if you're teaching at a junior high school or something, is just know that this Jeff Lear's stuff is like uncensored, which is I think how language teaching should be, right? So you're going to get like, so here's hiccup, and then so what this shows you is the verb root and the meanings, but you're going to have like an erect penis down there, and then some other things, and so, but there's words for these things. There's ways to say these things. So there's that. So I don't know if there's an actual noun, but you could just say uwadit, and then you would say, and let's go back. Let's look at one more thing, then we'll move on to something else. So the idea is being able to navigate these documents. These are the best things we have, and they're really, really good. So looking at this one, so here we can look up in English for hiccup. Let me zoom in. So we'll go down, and so here's hiccup. Uwadut, khatyadut. So what this, so they could be two different verbs, but I doubt it. So I think you would probably say khat uwadut. I have the hiccups. And so the way we can check that, so if you go back to Lear, he does have some different ways of writing things. So the underline, Y, this is one that would change to a W in some cases. It would change to an M in some cases in the interior. And so this is showing you, there used to be a sound in Tlingit that's, I'm not very good at making it, but it was basically like a nya sound. And now that has transformed into a variety of different things. So one example would be, Yaktushi said, Nan-ya-a-yi, and that's a clan. Na is upriver or north. Nya means in that vicinity. So there's a whole bunch of things that use this. And we hear, Hittayina de, go downstairs. Or you could say, Hashagenya. So there's all these nyas you see in Tlingit. Sanya, Henya, Nanya. And that nya sound, it used to be nya. And now it appears as either niya, nya, yina, and it takes all those different forms because that sound kind of fell out of Tlingit. So once we look up a word, we say, here's the hiccups. Then we could go look up this verb root. This is in the Nash Story Dictionary, doot. So we go down and we look up doot, and we see yadoot. And in parentheses, when they have that ST, what are they telling us? It's, yeah, so it's stative. So they mark transitivity in here. So if there's a TR, that means go ahead and put an object and a subject on that verb. It's there. If it says IN, that means there's only a subject in there. There's no object. And if it says ST, there's only an object. There's no subject. These are things you're going to have to remember as you start to use this more. Because when I was learning Tlingit and we started using the verb dictionary, we would just look it up and we'd just say uwadut every time. For like, I'm going to get him, I have him, I had him, she has him, we have him. So then we learned how to start manipulating them more. But what they're telling you is that stative, so you would say, khat uwadut, I have the hiccups. Iyadut, you have the hiccups. Hayadut, we have the hiccups. Right?
Could you go over, so the ST, IN, and TR one more time?
Yes. So TR, when it says the TR in parentheses, now we call that transitive. That's the way we write it now. And so you'd say, for example, this one, yadeq. So this says yadeq. And let me show you how we would write that today. Let me open some things I kind of write on here. 1 second. So we see that yadeq, and it says transitive. So the way we would write that now, in the ways that we're sort of documenting verbs to write that theme that we've been looking at, is it says transitive, so it would say O-S dash 0. They say ya. Let me make this a little bigger, sorry guys. So they would say ya. So whenever you see ya right before the verb root, that's going to be zero conjugate, that's going to be the zero classifier group. And then we can have the root marker, deq, and that's how we would write it now, because it says tr. And then we would say transitive, and then we'd have like an act verb, right? To challenge somebody. So this is, and let me take a, I don't want to go too far in that. So then if you have something that says st, then this one, you would write the O, not the S. So st means there is an object but no subject. We call these now object intransitive. So it's O, the classifier, doot, and then we would write zero state object intransitive. And then we'll go find another one that has the, so here's one, katadut, which means, and it says intransitive. So for the intransitive, that means, and so we can look at these two different verbs. It's actually really, this is a good example. So the object intransitive of this is to be crumpled up, to be folded up over and over. And that would have an object. But if it has a subject, that means to be doubled up, like to be curling yourself up into a ball, because you are doing that. So when it says intransitive, that means there is not an object, but there is a subject. So in this case, you would start with ka, s, and you'd have, we would write d plus 0 these days, and then doot. And that's, oops. And there's a neat kind of a noun, takledut, which is related to this one. So it's like to crumple up around the sleep. That's a word for a nap. Takledut. We've talked about verbs for 20 minutes. It's nap time. Okay. I won't take any more questions because I might take another 45 minutes of spiraling. But I do want to talk about, just come back to time, right? So thinking about how time works, there's a couple of things I want to just sort of get us to remember. So we talked about this a few times, like looking at time in little chunks. Ziyak, ziyagan are ones to start using. A little while ago, this happened. A little while from now, this is going to happen, right? Ziyak yi'in kachwanik, we u ka'uditat. A little while ago, I told you about people having the hiccups. Ziyagan ka'a yi'ide kakwanik Tlingit gawudat. Well, I guess it's going to be right now. In a little while from now, I'm going to tell you about. So these are things that help us signal when these events are happening. I was trying to find this slide. I'll have to pull it up some other time and put it up on our site. But to start talking about how time passes, this is a really interesting sort of thing, right? So I was getting these phrases from Kahwanish and Shakshani. So, for example, I worked all day. All day is shtakat yagi. And there's 3 different ways to say day. You could say yucky, yucky, or yagi. kind of depends on where you're from. Shtakat yagi is all day long. Shtakat yagi yejechwane. I worked all day. Every day would be tak yagi. Tak yagi yejin chanich. I work every single day. Right? And so those are a couple of good subtle differences to remember. Shtakat yagi all day, tak yagi every day. Because sometimes we want to communicate this stuff. The other thing would be 3 days, for 3 days, I'm going to be, let's say, for example, we're having a conversation, and you see me at the airport. Good day, sa. Good day, sa yakunetin. Where are you going? And I might say, Sheet kade yakunchatin. I said it long, should be short. I'm going to Sitka. Kun yaki anach sawe aye ikwati. How many days are you going to be there? So chanach would be that the key term there for the passing for over a number of days. For example, I could say Yakutat de chodakin. I went to Yakutat. Akawe yechwane naskigi chanach akakuchte chodakin. I went there and I worked for 3 days. Nask yaki chanach. So that's the passage of time. When we get into days passing and then time passing, there's 2 different verbs that we use. One is yawachi, which is for a day to pass, right? So you could say kun yaki sawe yawachi wush hutustin. How many days has it been since we've seen each other? Right? And you could say Jinkat yaki yawachi or something, however many, I didn't count. Right? But yawachi, yakkwachi, going to pass, did pass. Yawachi, yakkwachi. That verb root means for a day to pass. Right? So you could say Naskiki yakkwachi. 3 days from now, we're going to go to Tesla. Right. Naskiki yakwachi aka ijidekakwati ashtakatachdani. 3 days will pass, then I'm going to give you all of my money. Right. Or just whatever the that's not a true statement, just so you know. Just so you know. But it's good to know how to sort of do some of these things. And there might be a few other things, and so yagi is the day. Yakkwachi, yawachi. It will pass, it has passed. And so if we look at those, we're looking at, I'm just going to put these under here. Yakkwachi and yawachi. So this is the passage of time. Let me get this spelling stuff off of here. The other ways that time can generally pass and that you can sort of talk about it is shuachich, and I guess I'll do it.
Could you use those in a sentence? I mean, like right off the sentence.
Oh, yeah. So, for example, say dech yaki what's going to happen, I guess, in 2 days? Dech yaki yakwachi aka, we'll just keep it, hundaka hiti day. day. I can't think of. I'm cursed with long sentences. In 2 days, we're going to go to the store, right? So the key is once you're saying yakwahi, your verb should move into the future. Right? So you're going to use a future form of a verb right there. And the next step we're going to do is we're going to keep sort of conjugating these for objects and subjects, but now we're going to learn how to make perfective verbs and future verbs. That way, once we look a verb up, we can move it into those modes. So yawachi, dech yaki, So now this is it's a different translation, right? The structure works a little different. 2 days ago, we went to the store, right? So this is just saying how many days have passed since that thing has happened, right? In a similar way, you can have, let me make this a little bigger. Shukwachich and shuachich. So shukwachich would be something's going to come to an end. Shuachich, something came to an end. So that you could. This is when you're moving into months and years and stuff like that. So tekakadech tak shuachich. 22 years ago. Blah blah blah. Right.
That sentence, the second sentence though, it means in 2 days.
2 days ago we went to the store.
Ago we went to the store.
Right. So into when so, and we as we translate, we got to keep in mind that we're talking about days passing, and so the literal kind of translation is when 2 days will pass and then we'll go to the store. 2 days have passed. We went to the store. But it just kind of, Tlingit just kind of links them together. And there's, in advanced Tlingit, we'll learn stuff about really tying things together in different ways. We're looking at some things the other day where it was like, I'm going to do this, then this, or I can do this when I do this, or when I do this, I will do this. And so there's different ways to do all of that stuff. But this is just a simple starting point on how to start using time. And in Tlingit, you don't always have to sort of, English is a little bit fanatical about time, like, how many days, when was this was it, But you could do that stuff with Tlingit too. It gets a little tricky because sometimes you'd put gao in here, right? Dech gao kanach. Ha'ina kawanik wave. You at. What was the word? At danei. Is that it? Dech gao kanach away. Ha'ina kawanik Tlingit yuchatangita. He told us for 2 hours about the Tlingit language.
Oh, is that for like a clock?
Yeah, gao. Gao can also be an hour. Right? So it depends on the context. Right? Clock, drum, bell, hour, time. Kun gao saya. What time is it? How many drums are there? Kun gao saya. Okay. So then moving back into these sort of question and answer type things. We've done this a few times. And it's always good to just get a little more practice. Let's see if I can make this thing. So the first one, wasa duasak yadis. Wasa duasak yadis. Wasa duasak yadis. And something to just keep an eye on. Sometimes when you know that word has that W at the end, we want to make sure that we're saying duwasak, and we're not saying duwasauk. Sometimes there's this thing where we round a little bit too soon. So we say yauk instead of yak. So don't round until you hit that K. So what is the name of this month or moon? Yisikoksha. Yeah, away. So everybody say Hin Tanach Kayani Disi. Hin Tanach Kayani Disi Yedu Asak Yadis. Then, okay, let's do it in chunks. Hin Tanach Kayani Disi. Yedu Asak Yadis. Give myself too long of a pause. So then the third one, Kunyaki Saweya Wachi Yadis. Kunyaki Saweya Wachi Yadis. And the answer? Kayaki Yawachi Yadis. Kayaki Yawachi Yadis. Okay. So this is just good practice. If those of you who are teaching Tlingit, you could do calendar activities with this. This could be a way, having a routine. I know we've talked about doing that in here, and I haven't stuck to it. So, but this is something you could do. Just what month is it? What day of the month is it? And that's what we've done. Another step is you could say Dak Yaki Saweya Yaki, which is saying which day is it today. So then you could say Dech Yaki Ayah Yayaki, if you want to sort of say that. So Dech Yaki Ayah Yayaki. Okay. So here's a few other ones. Ungao Saya. And then you could say, there's different ways to break this down. So you could say like Dechgao Aya, it's 2 o'clock. Dechgao Ka'ashu Aya, it's 2:30. Dechgao Katekha Winitz Aya, it's 2:20. Dechgao Dachdak Kau Dechit, it's just come past 2 o'clock, if you want to say like a little after 2. Dech Gaude Yakandachit, it's almost 2 o'clock. So it just depends on how you want to sort of use these time references, right? And it depends. If we're in a school and there's a schedule or something, it might matter a little bit more. If we're just sort of walking around, we're going to meet someone at 2 o'clock, and then I might say Dech Gaude Yakandachit, and I'm saying it's getting to be 2 o'clock. So Kaudachit means for the clocks of the hand to hit a certain time. Okay, and then I think we did some verb stuff, which I think we'll skip this time. And then we move on to my next thing. I think we'll move back to this. After our break, we'll look at perfective, right? So the goal that we've been sort of practicing is looking at how verbs work, right? And so this little thing, which I gotta change the colors, I guess. Kak ki ak, yak ki lak. Try, succeed. Try, you're gonna succeed. Your brain gets stronger with our language. So there he is, like pumping iron, pumping books. So coming back to the classifier, I'll keep bringing it up. What does it do? What it does is it sort of changes what the verb is doing. So the root contains meaning, but then the classifier just is the fine tuner, right? And so what the fine tuning might do is you say, yagay is for something to be big, shagay is for something living to be big. So we're saying living things, non-living things. So it could be classifying, which is where the word classifier comes from. And so the other thing it could be doing is sort of saying it's not just happening, but somebody's making it happen. Right? So like chat yanik, I'm sick and I don't want to be sick. I'm just using it as an example. But if you had a cold and you gave it to me, I could say chat yasanik, you got me sick. So it goes from a zero classifier to the S, which says somebody made that thing happen. Right? So these are some things, and these are to use an example, maybe a common household example. Come home, there's your favorite dish with Star Wars on it, or Disney characters, or it's a piece of china, I don't know, it's important. And it's broken. And there's some kids there, and they're your kids. Wasa atmune. What happened? Yasik akawawach. The dish broke. Yasik kachlewach. I broke that dish. So we go from zero to hle in this case to say I did it. I'm the one. Somebody did it, as opposed to it just happened. So that's some of the things that the classifier can do, and that's when it moves between groups. So one of the things is the group is the first type of movement, and it just says we're actually making a different. Those are two different verbs, right? Then it can move within the group plus I minus I. Plus I generally is signaling that the verb has indeed happened. Minus I means it hasn't. Most of the verb modes are minus I. There's only a few that are plus I. And we see, like we call it a state imperfective, because it has to be that way to be that way. Say chat yak a, because I am yak a. So ya is a plus I classifier, right? Chat chitzin. Or why don't you be strong? Ichitzin. Hle is a plus I classifier, right? So these are some things to just keep an eye out as you see that classifier. Other ones are perfectives in the positive forms. Chwaseku, se, si. And so we see it here. I guess I should use an appointment so the online gang can see. Chwaseku. But if I don't know it, it goes minus I, kash chwasaku. Sa instead of se. That's what that classifier with the plus I minus I is signaling. So one of the things that we'll realize in a verb is that it's going to just, there's certain things that just start activating to show us what's going on with that verb. And one of those things is the classifier, right? And then there's these different verbs. There's a whole bunch of different verb modes. Tlingit has a bunch of them, right? Commands, like to say sleep. Nata. Don't sleep. I think that's how you'd say it. Well, let's just take a look at some examples. I don't want to give you bad examples. So we look under carries, agishawu. We go down to ta for sleep, if that's our example. So we see nata for sleep. Or you say not today. Go to sleep right now. Don't go to sleep. So we see it's gotten a little more complicated. Ta, he or she is sleeping. Kesh uta, she or he isn't sleeping. Wuta, slept. Kesh wuta, didn't sleep. Kukata, will sleep. Kesh kukata, won't sleep. Nakata, let him or her sleep. Natach, they sleep all the time. Like this is someone who never gets out of bed. Kesh unatach, hasn't slept yet. Kesh ade unqatayi, can't sleep. And this unqatayi you can actually pull out of there for some other modes just like that. Gwash unqatayi, maybe he or she is going to sleep. Nakwatayan, would have slept. Natini, when she or he sleeps. And this one, when we talk about this conditional, a lot of people want to try to use that to be like, when I sleep or when I go to the store, I'm going to buy some French fries. And that's not like that. It's like every time they sleep, they snore. It's really tying these two things together. And then teich, sleeps regularly, which all of us do. Right? And so they get pretty complicated. There's a bunch of stuff that goes on either side, and the prefix and the suffix. That's where everything tends to happen. But our focus is going to be perfective, future, imperfective. That's where you start. Because it's, and there's you throw a few commands in there. But you don't need commands that often. I mean, you could get real bossy with people, I guess, but you need commands with kids and pets. And then there's like, hand me this, and, and sometimes you'll have commands. They're not always rude. Like you might say, someone's cooking, and you might say, hey, put this in there. Right? There'd be a command for that.
I used Igley with my cat this morning when she was peeing on my socks.
That's a big issue.
No, I mean, it just came out, and I was like, oh.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay. Well, let's take a break, and we'll come back and we'll look at some other stuff. So take 5, come back. I'm going to put a different slide up, and we'll look at the perfective.
Get my email about you and Emily possibly doing your
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Are you think you're going to be in town? Or
that was April 6th.
So it's not this Friday,
Uh-huh.
and it's not next Friday, it's the Friday after that. And it's right at 5 o'clock, like, right?
I might be in Ketchikan.
No, I want you guys to do it so much.
Okay, let me see what I can do.
Okay.
So once we want to start changing these verbs, we always have to remember the order of things, right? So the conjugation prefix, once we see na, we know the subject has to come after. So you can't have chanateni. It has to be nachateni, nachateni, and then, but as far as that one, it's a really sort of, there's other ways to say, like nachateni achajunuch, I always dream when I sleep. So there's usually some kind of repetitive type of thing that's tied to it, because there's ways to tie cause and effect together. So like, I'm happy to see you, but it would be I'm happy every time I see you, I'm happy. Those types of things. But the conditional, if you just listen to speakers and look at how they talk, they don't use them that much. There's other ways to do that in a more kind of straightforward, like, I'm happy to see you. Yakeyach satini, the way you tie those two things together, as opposed to the other one, it tends to push things into these big sort of conceptual kind of levels. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but I just know I had a lot of students that want to just try those out all the time. And I think it's great, but then I just try to say, but if you listen, speakers don't use that much. It's more like, it seems to get into these big cultural concepts, like every time we talk about this, something bad happens, right? That type of thing. Or every time this thing happens, that other thing happens. It seems to be how it works, but we'll look at it next year. At least for this class. Okay. So coming back to the verb itself, we got all these illustrations to look at it, which is sort of like looking at a bunch of pictures of monsters, right? So you have a preverb. What are the things that are most commonly going to be in the preverb? Wooch or whoosh, when people are doing something together. It's different than wooch-in. Wooch-in is just kind of outside of the verb. Right? It's kind of a preverb, but it's a different thing. Hus for they or them. The other thing you're going to get there is motion preverbs, right? So there's different types of motion, and there's these things that could go in the preverb that tell you what type of motion it is. So this is, and it's a long conversation that we'll have maybe in a couple weeks, but the short thing is like you say hagu, neilgu, weide nagu, right? Those are all about going, but the type of motion changes the conjugation of the verb. And so, but not worrying about motion verbs, so you have the preverb, you have the objects. So again, if the verb takes an object, that's where it's going to go. So if we go through this list, to be doing good, chat yak a, ha yak a, yak a, yi yak a, yak a, ha yak a, at yak a, and there's no, the reflexive is to do it to the self, right? And so you can make yourself feel better, but I won't say that one. And then in between this is where the conjugation prefix is going to pop up. There's only a few different verb modes where that pops up. The hortative, the command, and some of these other longer potential conditional types of things. But you'll hear it, and this is something you'll need to command things. Nata, go to sleep. Shinde, get up. Qannu, sit down. Gidan, stand up. But in Tlingit, we're selective on how and when we use our commands, right? It's right there, the CP. The prefix right here is where any of these thematic prefixes are going to go. Ka, ya, sha, shu, eh, sa, right? And so we've seen a few verbs that have those. Those always go in between the object and the subject, right? And then the subject is right before the classifier every time. Nothing can come between the subject and the classifier as long as the subject is there. So here's for love, talking about loving somebody. Chesechan, tusechan, isechan, yisechan, asechan, because this one changes to a. Dudzechan, right? And so there's some things. There's a few things to sort of keep an eye on. There's the classifier that we've talked about. And then there's these 5 types of verbs, right? So we're going to get to that. Right now we're just going to sort of keep thinking of all this stuff, but start thinking about the perfective. The perfective is a really important verb mode. You want to tell stories, they're in the perfective. Right? So here's a little thing like the way that tense works in English. This is something Richard Downhauer used to talk about. They say when someone starts talking to you, you kind of like, let's say, am I telling a story or a joke? You often know because jokes are told in the present tense. Right? So I could say, me and my friend walked into a bar. I'm telling you some story. A guy walks into a bar. That's a joke, right? But perfectives are really important because these are stories. And the story could just be oh, I saw this funny thing. I saw this interesting thing. Let me tell you about what so-and-so did. Here's the juicy gossip. Or it could be some of these bigger conceptual things, like where our clan comes from. What happened to Duktu? That's all a lot of perfective stuff. And they use some bigger modes in some of those big stories. But this is a really important one. So there's a couple things. One is I did this. I put this thing together because I was like, oh, what if we just envisioned the verb as a whole bunch of little switches that you could turn on or off, and sometimes they have multiple sort of things on them. And that's kind of one of the ways I tend to think about it these days. So if we move left to right, we're starting on this top row, and we're getting all the way, and so this is everything that could come up to the classifier. On the bottom right is the classifier. Right, so starting from here, there's some preverbs. Klesh is a big one that will put the verb into the negative, right? Klesh chosaku, I don't know. Klesh dasa chosaku, I don't know anything, right? That's still a negative verb, right? Then there's different types of motion, or you can just set the conjugation class, is the way that we like to talk about it these days. So the zero, and this relates to a few other things in the verb. There's what we call reciprocal, so whoosh means we're doing this together. If you have whoosh or whoosh right before the verb, not whoosh in or whoosh tin, but whoosh or whoosh, it's going to push that verb plus D. Okay? So for example, ich sechan, I love you. Chat isechan, you love me. Whoosh tudzechan, we love each other. So it goes plus D, so you go from si to z. Okay? The other thing that could be out there is a third person plural that can pluralize the third person subject, object, or both. Then here's your object pronouns. Chat, ha, I, yi, zero, or a. Ka or k, ut. There's three others that we haven't even, there's a couple of those we haven't talked about yet. Ash and ah. We're not going to worry about those. Then there's these three thematic, you can have up to 3 thematic prefixes. These mean something, and if it's there, it's a totally different verb. Right? So there's k, and these are just the most common ones. There's more than this. K refers to a space. Right? So kudziti, it's born. It exists. Ka is a comparative, so you could say yage, it's big. Ye kuge, it's this big. And then there's which is what we call athematic. There's certain things that are athematic. Asteich, to fish. Ashteich, to dance. Ashlun, to hunt. But that A just gets held on, it just pops up there, but it could go away if you're doing specific things, right? So you could say, Ashlun is just hunting. So you can say, Achatun, I'm hunting. Sachatun, I'm hunting seal. Now it's a different verb. A lot of the body functions have an A theme in them. Achwakwat, I farted. Achwatlit, I pooped. Achwatluch, I peed. Outlitsa, I burped. A lot of them, they just have that A theme just kind of built in there. The other ones, j is hand, t is inside, hl is the nose or the point, sa or sa is the voice, kha, khe or ka is the mouth of something, da is around, sha is the head, sh is the end, ya is the vertical surface. The third one, ka, spherical or round, or ka, horizontal surface. So what this tells you is you could have ka, j, ka. You can have those three, but you can only have one per dial, right?
Could you just have ka, ka?
Yes. Because you have taqa is a mosquito. It's the biter. Kakataqa are pliers, because they're two sides that bite together. So it's comparative, because they're going like that. Right? Kaushatit is shatit is to be on the waves. Kakaushatit is to be rolling in the swell, because your boat's going up and down compared to where the horizon is. So there's this comparative thing that pops up in there sometimes. Self-benefactive, we're not going to worry about that. There's this little thing that could pop up sometimes where you could just signal to somebody, I'm doing this just for me, right? Like I'm cooking. Cooking is always a good one. Hey, what you cooking? I'm cooking noodles for myself, right? So it's not always a rude thing, but that is how it works. Then you get into the conjugation prefixes. So these are the commands, right? So you say gadan or yagag, walk around. And so these are the things. There's these three right here. Or I guess we should say these four right here. These are the four that control the verb modes. There's these four knobs, and they turn on in these certain combinations. It's almost like a code. When I turn this one and this one and this one, that's the future. The future is going to be ga, the irialis, which is and then qa. Those three things will be in the future mode every single time. For the future, you're going to turn the ga, irialis, and the qa modal every time. For the perfective, the conjugations are going to be off, the irialis is off, but the perfective is on. So that's why I made this thing with these little, it looks like you're turning a light on.
Why have you got them together, the perfective and the...
Because it's a one or the other.
Oh, I see.
You can't have both of those at the same time,
Okay, yeah.
right? So the other thing is there's these things, and we're still sort of trying to figure out how all this stuff works. But it seems to be there's these conjugation prefixes. So for example, nata. So then you know that it's a na conjugation. That's how you use the command form of that. But then you say yanagut. That's a different na. It's in the same spot, but it's a different one. And it does get confusing, but you start to see it when we start going. So that the basic idea is we do this big theoretical stuff, then we just start cramming through a bunch of examples. And as we go through examples, we see the prefix can only appear in so many different ways. And we look at every possible combination, and then we look at a blank one, and I'll say, okay, now you say it. And you'll start to get it. It makes sense. In the abstract, it doesn't always make sense. But you got to keep going back and forth between the abstract and the examples, I think, at this point. So after all of this business, you get the subject, right? So we went over that. You get the classifier group, whether or not it's plus D, whether or not it's plus I. So the way that we like to think of these is the default is minus D, minus I, and you have to change it to plus D or plus I, because you're either saying you're saying like, now this is like we're doing this to myself, or it has indeed happened. So that's this thing. I want to make one someday, so I just like, and then a little word pops out. Be like some sci-fi show in the 70s or 80s or something.
That would be cool.
Right. Well, actually, let's see, Sank is working on a computer program that will conjugate verbs for you. But you have to be that computer program too, right? And so we're going to learn the steps. Everybody got any questions? Everybody okay? So here we go. So there's a couple things. I started this presentation with a concept called verb sleuthing, right? Because when they documented verbs in the 70s, Jeff Lear wrote down most of the stuff that we need to know. You can look at his notes, and once you know how to put these verbs together, there's enough stuff there to use these verbs in pretty much any different mode. Once you learn how to use these different modes, change the object and subject. But Nation Story didn't always write that stuff down. But there are ways to tell. And so some of the big things that Nation Story, the one thing they did not usually write down was the conjugation class. When we say class, there's these 4 conjugation classes: 0, na, ka, and ka. These have a basic meaning. 0 means that it comes to some definitive end. Na means there's not an end specified. Doesn't mean it goes on forever. It just means there's no specified ending. Ga means it's upwards. Ka means it's downwards. Once you start learning verbs at this level, you need to know the conjugation class. Then you'll use the command form. There's other things, like when we use the future, like a future verb for I'm going to sleep later, kukwata. That's how you'd say it, that, kukwata. Here's a 0 verb. What's a 0? I'm going to make it. I'm going to build it. Kukwatayer. Right? When I say it's going to be okay, you would say ke kwak e. The K has to pop up in that future form because it's ga. If you say I'm going to see you later, ye ik kwasatin. The ye pops up because of the ga conjugation. Okay? So there's a couple things that you kind of need to know about this. Because now we're gonna start tying more things in. And teaching Tlingit's really fun. Because it's like, yeah, it's like this. I'm like, oh, great. Oh, and it's also like this. Wait, what? Oh, and it's also like this. Right? And so you got to kind of trick people. You're like, oh yeah, it's just like this. And then the more they do it, you're like, oh, and then there's this and this and this and this.
You're not tricking me.
I can't trick you guys anymore, right? I'm like, oh, this is so much fun. Like, no, it isn't. It's not fun. Of course it's fun. So I was thinking of this because I can't remember the context, but I really like that choking a chicken is one of the verb forms. I don't know why. It's got a bad sense of humor. I blame my dad and my uncles. They don't take any accountability. But one of the things is when we look at a perfective form of a verb, there's 2 things we could tell about the conjugation class if it's not given to us. So like if you look up a verb and Hiccough Shamu, the way she's documenting verbs, it tells you everything you need. And the way that Zeosh and the way that he's documenting verbs tells you everything you need. But this one, when you see this, kar sach wat sich, there's a couple of things. When you look it up in Lear's notes, you'll see that the underline fell off in the Nation Story. So this should actually be kar sach wat sich. I strangled a chicken. Tirch say wat sich. He was strangled by the rope, or she. But there's one thing that, if we look at that verb root, once we learn the perfective, we know that's a 0 conjugation. The way that we know that is the closed root is short and high. A perfective closed root that's a 0 conjugation class will be short and high. So then once we know it, now we can put it into all these other different modes. It's a little complicated, but the perfective helps to unlock some of those things. And then we can get this one. So we'll start our exercises with choking things to death. Just a little bit morbid, but... Okay, so just repeat after me. Sachwatzich. Sautuwatzich. Siyatsich. Sayitzich. Asewatsich. Hasasewatsich. Sauduwatsich. And then we got the future forms over there, but you can just look at them. We're not going to say them because we're focused on the perfective right now. The next thing we're going to, once we feel like we've got it, we'll do the future. So the other one is we looked at this verb. There's some raven verbs, yesh, right? Yesh is to act like I know what I'm doing, but I don't really know what I'm doing, which is fun. Yesh is to cheat somebody, to fool them. Yesh is to lie. So for this one, again, when we look at the examples, if the perfective, so we see here, Dahuni kutchat wutlayesh. The storekeeper cheated me, right? Scammed me out of some money. He's mad because he got cheated. Neither. So if we look at the perfective and we have a closed root that's long and low, all we know is it's not zero. That's all we know. But when I was asking Marge Dutson about this, she said, which is, I'm not going to cheat you. So as soon as she said the K part, I knew it was G conjugation. So this is how you could do some investigating to figure out the conjugation class if it's not documented. Okay. But let's just take a look. Let's start looking at the patterns. So the thing that we're going to look at is everything up to the verb root. So we see that verb root all the way down. Ka for sewing, right? And then we look at what's before it. Hua, watua, yi, awa, hus, awa, wadua. The third person and the plural, you're always just going to throw hus on it, and then you've got the plural form. Right, so that one's one of the easiest ones. The other thing that you're going to see is watua and wadua. You're just changing one sound, right? Watua, wadua. For the other ones, there's just some patterns, a few patterns you've got to learn. One of the things you're going to realize in Tlingit is there's this common theme that there's zero, and then there's everything else. So in the zero group, you're going to get hua, watua, yi, awa, hus, awa, wadua, every single time. So if it's a zero classifier and there's no thematic prefix, you could just use those prefixes every single time, right? So if this was walking, I guess walking is a bad example because you can't pluralize that. If this was zero classifier. Eating, perfect. So for eating, the end is that's not going to be a ka, that's going to be cha. I ate it. Hua cha. We ate it. Watua cha. You ate it. Yi cha. Y'all ate it. Yi cha. She or he ate it. Awa cha. They ate it. Hus awa cha. It was eaten. Wadua cha. Right? So once we've learned to build that pattern, now we can just start gobbling up verbs and putting them in the perfective. Okay? So the classifier for a perfective that's in the positive form, it happened, it will be plus I. So it's going to be ya, de, se, ze, hle, gle, she, or je. Those are your only options. So once you see the classifier group, you should just grab the plus I version of that particular classifier. And we're going to see that as we go through. The last thing to remember about the perfective before we start moving into all of our examples is stem variation. Stem variation is one of the last things to sort of look at in a Tlingit verb. It's saying, is it going to be short and high, long and low? Those are your three options. it's determined by three things. The stem type. There are 4 different stem types. The conjugation type and the verb mode. It's a combination of those 3 things. So there's an open stem, and that means there's no consonant on the end of it. Cha, ta, ka, all of those ones that are open, ku, they're all open. The one thing that you might see is there's a little H after it, and everything from Kerry Eggleston's work in Tlingit verbs a few years ago up until today. There'll be a little H above it, like you see with this one down here, and that means it's fading. For open roots, there's only one difference between the open and the fading. When you get into a repetitive verb mode, the fading stays low. Because I think a long time ago there used to be kind of an H at the end of it. Okay, so it'd say like T. There'd be this little H a long time ago. There's a closed root, and that means that there's a consonant at the end. Teen. Goot. Right? So that's open, ends with a vowel, closed, ends with a consonant. So basically you can have closed, or you can have what we call glottalized or ejective. And you don't have to the ejective just means there's an apostrophe at the end. But basically the only thing you have to look at, if there's an H, it's fading. If the verb in the theme has a high tone on it, there will be no low tone version. That's the basics of stem type. For a perfective, the zeros are always high, the non-zeros are low. So you see that? For open, it's going to be long and high. So for example, hua cha, that's a high tone at the end. Hua ta, that's a low tone at the end. It's all predictable, but you just got to remember this. Here's another system. But this is it. Conjugation type, object, subject, thematic, stem variation. These are the big things you have to remember to really be able to manipulate verbs. And this is where a lot of people get frustrated. But we kind of look at this example, and then we look at this information, then we just start running through a bunch of examples. Okay? For closed verbs, the zeros will always be short and high. The non-zeros will be long and low, unless the verb does not allow a long and low version. Okay? So let's take a look at what all this means with a few different examples. So up in the top right, this is where you see the verb theme. It tells you everything you need to conjugate the verb. There's one other thing about stem variation. If there's a little cross above it, the little X, that means it never changes. A will be long and low every single time. Okay? And that means to find something. This is a g event verb. G is non-zero, so we expect it to be long and low anyways. And we look at this one, to sew. Not to sew it, but just, I'm going to sew tonight. I sewed last night. We see this one is open. It's a zero, so we expect it to be long and high. But these are, and so what we're looking at here is there's 2 types of prefixes. 0 and non-zero. Because what they're really saying, 0 means there's ya. That's what the classifier is. All of those other classifiers, di, si, zi, shli, gli, shi, j. What those are is the letter I with a consonant in front of it. So they're actually all exactly the same, except for that one consonant changes. Right? So once you learn the pattern, you could change it from chwase, or chwade, chwase, chwadze, chwashe, chwadle, chwashe, chwadje. And we'll see those examples. So this shows you what it's like in this form, what it looks like if you were to write it. This shows you the components. Every single time we're getting object, perfective, subject, classifier. Those four things. When we put them together, so I found it. Chwad a. Chwad a. We found it. Watuwat a. Watuwat a. You found it. Yeet a. Yeet a. Y'all found it. Yeet a. Yeet a. He or she found it. Awat a. Awat a. They found it. Hus awat a. Hus awat a. It was found. Would do what a. Would do what a. When we get to the fourth person, there is a rule here, which is just one more rule to stack on top of all your book of rules. For the non-zero, for the zero group classifiers, which includes 0 plus D, right? All the zero group classifiers, when there's a fourth person, it must be minus D. So this is why it changes over here from wuddika to wudduwaka. For all of the non-zeros, se, shle, sh, they must change to the plus D version. Right? So it's another thing. It's like, at this point, we're probably just hearing a bunch of like, ma, 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 ma. But when we look at the examples, we'll see it. Okay.
I was going to say, you can see inside my head.
Yeah, I've gone full Charlie Brown teacher.
Charlie Brown.
Okay. I sewed. Chwadeka. Chwadeka. We sewed. Wutudeka. Wutudeka. You sewed. Yideka. Yideka. Y'all sewed. Yideka. Yideka. He or she sewed. Wuddeka. Wuddeka. They sewed. Huswuddeka. Huswuddeka. People sewed. Wudduwaka. Wudduwaka. So here's another verb. To see something specific, right? And then also to break the law. Here's your Judas Priest. Or I guess it could be a Thoreau verb, whatever. So, for the first one, there's a couple things we look at. Okay, there's an object. That means for the third person, we should be predicting the at the front of it. And we see it, ow, sit. The second thing we notice is it's an S group classifier. It should be si every single time. We see it's a qa, event verb. It should be long and low. All of those things are true. All of those things are predictable, but that's what you start looking for. For the next one over, there is no object, So the third person won't be oudzagit, it'll be woodzagit. That tells us whether the pops up there. D plus S, so it's going to be z every single time. Z, 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 z. It's a 0, so we expect it to be short and high, and it is. Okay, so we're not going to say the English, but you know what the English is. We're doing I, we, you, y'all, he or she, they, people. Okay? But start to listen to the patterns. Chwase, right? And let me just tell you them real quick. Chwase, watuse, yise, yisi, ause, hus, ause, wadudze. Chwadze, watudze, yidze, yidze, wudze, wudze, wudze. Right? Or wadudze, sorry. So here you see the S, si, changing to the plus D, z, when the fourth person is there. Okay, repeat after me. Chwasatin, watusatin, yisatin, yisatin, ausatin, husausatin, wadudzatin. I saw it, we saw it, you saw it, y'all saw it, he or she saw it, they saw it was seen. A gate chodzagit. A gate wutudzagit. A gate yidzagit. A gate yidzagit. A gate wudzagit. A gate haswudzagit. A gate wududzagit. I broke the law, we broke the law, you broke the law, y'all broke the law. He or she broke the law, they broke the law. Laws were broken. This could also be interpreted as shenanigans, right? So it's not always like a super, like a hardcore thing, right? I just want to do something, like some kind of, that could be breaking the law. Okay. So here's our next example. So we look at the top one. There's an object. So we expect ausle. There it is. It's an L group classifier, shle, all the way down. It's na. So we expect it long and low. That's what it is. Okay. This is to break rope-like objects. We're breaking ropes. Okay. And then we see this is this one has no object, so we get woodly instead of any kind of ow kind of beginning. D plus L, so it's going to be gle all the way down. Na, conjugation, long and low. Okay, so first breaking ropes, next vomiting. Yay. Okay. Chwashik oots. Watushik oots. Yishik oots. Yishik oots. Aushik oots. Hasaushik oots. Wududlik oots. Chwatliku. Watudliku. Yidliku. Yidliku. Woodliku. Huswoodliku. Wadudliku. Ja, hini konach yajinyanistan. Yak klein konachewe kakaushati. Achawe wududliku. Right? So like the ocean was really rough and wavy. The big boat was rocking. That's why people were barfing. Right? So that's how you can use these. Okay. So what we've been doing is we've been moving through these classifier groups. 0, 0 plus D. S, S plus D. L, L plus D. SH, SH plus D. And this last one's a pretty rare verb. But here they both have objects, So we get ow and ow. This is SH, so it's sh all the way down. This one is D plus H, so it is j all the way down. G is long and low, 0, short and high. Right? It's all predictable. We just learn to look for the three things we're looking for. Once we see the verb theme, we want to put it in the perfective. Is there an object? What's the classifier? What's the conjugation type? Class, sorry. So, I hated it, so we're going to hate. And then we're going to bring food to a potluck. Maybe we do things in that order, right? I felt bad, so I brought some food because I was hating. Right? Khwashik on. Watushik on. Yishik on. Yishik on. Aushik on. Has aushik on. Wadujik on. Khwachakukh. Watujakukh. Yijakukh. Yijakukh. Aujakukh. Has aujakukh. Wadujakukh. Okay. So now that we have been able, we know everything there is to know about putting perfectives together. At least we've been told, right? So there's three things we're looking for. Is there an object? What's the classifier? What's the conjugation type? And the stem. We're going to look at those things together, right? So for this first one, so if I look at this thing, I see O-S-0-ach. The number 1 tells me there's other types of ach verbs, handling, fabrics. But this one is to hear. It's a 0, so everything's there. What are the things that we should know about the perfective? What does the object, seeing the object on there, tell us? It's transitive. So when we get to the third person, because it's a 0 classifier, it should be awa, right? The other thing is if it's a 0 classifier group, the classifier should be ya, all the way down. Because it's a 0 conjugation type and a closed verb root, what should the stem be? Short and high. All the way down. Anybody like to take a guess? Or not a guess, a calculated, knowledgeable, informed guess? For I heard it. And I'll tell you guys a little funny just to break the ice a little bit. When I was trying to get these ones from George, I said, I heard it. And the verb he gave me was way different. And it was for like herding cattle. So it's a neat cross-language moment. I was like, wait, is that like herding sheep or something? He's like, yeah. It's like, okay. Like hear, to hear it with your ears, you know. I heard it. Hwa'ach. Everybody say, hwa'ach. 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 Anytime that you have done a 0 classifier verb, hwa, hwagut, I walked, right? Hwa'ach, I heard it. Hwacha, I ate it. Hwata, I slept. Okay? We heard it. Ye awe. Watuwa'ach. 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 So now, anytime we have verbed a 0 classifier verb, we're going to have watuwa, right? Watuwa. I can't use the walking. Watuwa ought. We walked. Watuwacheu. We slept. I happen to pick two verb examples that the verb stem changes when you go plural. Chwa watuwacha. We ate it. Right? For this one, I'm going to give you this one because there's something that's a little bit different about it compared to the other examples. Iya'ach. 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 There's a few different verbs that might go iya or uwa instead of ye and woo. This is another thing that Tlingit does. Some verbs have, like, did the goal get reached? Yes, I heard it. Iya. And so it just takes that shape, right? And so there's only a few of them, but it's just yet another crazy thing. Okay, but the flip side is the second person plural is probably the easiest of the perfectives to get because it's Y-E-E-Y plus, and it kind of absorbs the classifier in this case, but otherwise it's yi-se, yi-de, yi-tle. So, y'all heard it? Yi-ach. 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 He or she heard it. Awa-ach. 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 Put a hus in front of it. Hasawa-ach. 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 It was heard. Wadua-ach. 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 Now the next category over is going to be a lot simpler because the prefix is going to be identical to what you see on the left. Because this is also 0, 0. This should be awa as well because there's an object. All these are going to be ya, 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 all these classifiers. It's going to be short and high, so it should be in. So what would the first one be? I picked berries. Not se though.
What?
Not se.
No, asa or hua.
Hua in. Hua in. Hua in. You did. We picked berries. Watua in. Watua in. Watua in. You picked berries. Iya in. Iya in. Iya in. Y'all picked berries. Ye in. Ye in. Ye in. He or she picked berries. Awa in. Awa in. Awa in. They picked berries. Oops. Hus awa in. Hus awa in. Berries were picked. Wadua in. Wadua in. Now there's a separate verb that is related, which would be sit in, and that would be to carry that bucket of berries. It's to carry a full container to a place. So I could say, Hat chwasa in. I carried it here. Hat watusa in. We carried it here. Hat yisa in. You carried it here. Hat yisa in. Y'all carried it here.
Could we do like 25 more verbs that are all like that? That have that same 0 plus, or 0 or object subject, 0, Yeah, but transitive.
Well, we got to move to the S classifier, though. But there's only okay, here's the thing. There's zero and everything else, right? So when we look at the next examples, or we'll go back to one of these.
Really bad hiccups, I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to get rid of them.
Yeah, this because somebody brought up hiccups, right? I'm telling you, these things get. That's why I always, whenever I say like some verb about being sick, I was like, we don't want to be sick. Okay, so here it is. Chwase, wutuse, yise, yise, ause, has, ause, wududze. That's se. All you change is the consonant once you go non-zero. Chwashe, wutushe, yishe, yishe, aushe, has, aushe, wududle. Chwashe, wutushe, yishe, yishe, aushe, has, aushe, wududje. So there's zero and everything else, right? We'll do this. Well, what we'll do is we'll do the whole thing again without the big grammatical explanation. We'll just go right into these examples, do them again. I'll put this. Well, I won't put the whole slideshow up because I want you to be able to guess. I want you to be able to calculate. You should be able to boldly predict the forms. Okay.
With extreme accuracy.
Right. 100%. Okay. Yakay ganas chi shuhan hucha. Yikoyach one. It does make sense the more you do, I think. Ah, ganas chi shcha.